I recently wrapped producing a theater production at our local community theater, and this is now a couple of years I've spent heavily invested in the local theater here, and theater is a fixed date project. We know what our opening night is before we have the first rehearsal, before we have any auditions. And it was fascinating to see, as a person who works in software where I try to avoid fixed date as much as possible, what it takes to really turn out a good product with a fixed date. So here are 4 things that I saw contribute to our success to actually be there on opening night with a great product. Number 1, we started with the hardest, riskiest things first. We front-loaded those. Set pieces we weren't sure were going to work, movements that we thought were hard for people to learn, the songs with the most complication. The things that were the hardest, we did the earliest as possible. Because if they weren't possible, or if they were going to be too expensive or not really fit, we learned that fast and then had lots of time to adjust to come up with other plans. So when we would throw something together and you go, oh wait, this is going to cost more than we would want, then we can adjust, then we can make a new creative solutions to those problems. So we would prioritize and start as soon as possible the things that we knew had the biggest risk or the most complication in them. Number 2, we got to a save point as fast as possible. By that I mean trying to find out how fast can we get to having a show. Not a great show, not one that's the show of our dreams. The ensemble might sound sketchy, the dances aren't fantastic, our scene transitions are a mess, but as fast as possible to get to the point where if we had to open tomorrow, we could. Once you have that, then you can start tweaking and cleaning and adjusting and building and growing, and it takes the pressure off. It also then gives you the ability to figure out the next point, which is where are you willing to sacrifice scope? Once you've got a show, then you can say, okay, our dream was to have this amazing custom 3D presentation that was going to go on all of these screens and work, but given what we see now and how much time we have left, we can dial that back to something that's more feasible and within our means. Maybe our dream was to have some amazing, like the whole stage was going to rotate during the scene, but now that we see it and now that we're here, we realize that was going to take too long, so now we're going to cut this back and we're going to use half the stage instead. Whatever it is, you then have the ability to make good, wise, non-pressured sacrifice scope decisions because you've had the time to think about it and you know you always have a safe save point to roll back to. You can experiment with things, you can adjust things. But I've never seen us meet the fixed date in theater without sacrificing some of the initial scope and vision that we had at the first production meeting. Doesn't happen. I've never seen a fixed date theater production or a fixed date software project actually reach that date with the same scope. You must be willing to sacrifice scope, and the sooner you identify the things that are must-haves versus like-to-haves, the better, because you can constantly have that conversation with frequent check-ins. And last but not least, the thing that makes this possible, the reason my local theater can keep making these dates, these fixed date projects, you stack the deck with talent and expertise. There's no shortcut to that. You build a team of great people that have done this before and that can already lay out, okay, here's the pieces that we need to make this happen. Here's a reasonable order to make this go. Here's the order of operations. This is about how long it takes to audition, about how long it takes to choreograph, about how long it takes to do run-throughs, to build the set. Stacking the deck with talent and experience, the quality of show that we produce with that fixed date is above and beyond if you were to just throw a bunch of people together trying their best, but without that real talent and expertise. And you'll see a difference on stage, and you'll see a difference with making that date or not. And I want to be clear, I've yet to be involved in a production that didn't have all sorts of weird things happen. COVID, so you can't rehearse for a couple of weeks. You can't get access to the stage. Weather causes you to cancel rehearsals. You end up losing cast members halfway through the production. All sorts of nonsense happens, and yet somehow we still find a way to open those doors. The show must go on, because once you embrace this, that it must go or it must not, all of a sudden you're learning that you have to prioritize the hardest, riskiest things first, get to a save point fast, figure out your kind of lowest denominator of what you can deliver, be willing to sacrifice scope and identify that, and sacrifice scope constantly, early and often, and stack the deck with talent and expertise. And maybe, just maybe, you have a chance at making a fixed date project work.